All right, here we are live with Cole Holmes of Waterstone Mortgage. Thought we'd do a little interview today on the current real estate market and how interest rates are moving and how that's affecting your buying power.
Yeah.
But kind of tease this with inflation, because inflation is a big thing that's going on in the media today, and how that's going to impact our interest rates and your ability to purchase, or if you're selling a home, how that's going to impact you as well too. So I'll let Cole introduce himself here for just a second, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me. My name's Cole. As Aaron said, I'm with Waterstone Mortgage here in the South Lake, Grapevine, Keller area, and just glad to be with my friend Aaron today.
Awesome. Let's jump right in. I know we talked a little bit before getting on here about basically inflation, highest it's been in 30 years. How are you seeing that impact interest rates, and what do you crystal ball? What do you see it doing here in the future?
Yeah, so I have been consulting my crystal ball a lot lately,
Good.
and for the past 2.5 months, it's been wrong every single time, which is just awesome. The market has just been bizarre. It's doing things that it shouldn't be doing, and what I mean by that is every economic report that has come out that has been negative, that's usually bond friendly, and that is 100% what drives interest rates. Mortgage rates is mortgage bonds, but bonds haven't been reacting the way that we would anticipate. So it's been a roller coaster for sure. But inflation, that ugly I word, that is 100% what is driving interest rates up right now, and that is because inflation begins to rear its ugly head, and inflation is the arch enemy of a fixed paying investment, which is a bond, like a mortgage bond or a treasury bill or something like that. So when we get economic reports stating that inflation is skyrocketing, as it has been, as you mentioned, Aaron, it's as high as it was in the 80s or late 80s, right? So 30 years, 40 years. When we have economic reports released that show inflation has taken off, all of these bond investors sell all of their bonds, mortgage bonds included, and that causes the price of the bond to drop and rates and yields move up. So that's exactly what's been going on, and we've seen rates from. And I'm more than happy to share some of the information that I have. I think my contact information is maybe somewhere on here, but I'm more than happy to share this because it really puts it in perspective. Interest rates back in August, just this past summer, were 2.875, roughly right around there. And I locked in a couple of clients just this week at 3.75, one yesterday at 3.875. But Freddie Mac's primary mortgage market survey, which you can Google, Freddie Mac PMMS primary mortgage market survey, they release every Thursday morning. They've been doing this for 30 plus years, and it shows the average of what lenders are quoting and locking rates, right? So it'll show you that this past week we were at 3.56. That was kind of an average for the trailing week, right? Yeah. So that's quite a bit of a jump. That's
These are prime paper, like they're good credit scores. It's not like
these are 20% down, great credit. And it's funny seeing your reaction to that, because clients that I'm visiting with right now, I'm having these they're difficult conversations, right? Mm-hmm. They may have been looking for a home for the last 3 or 4 months. Maybe even 6 months. I'm sure you've got buyers that they just can't win a deal because it's such a hyper competitive, crazy market, right? And when they were first pre-qualified, they were at, let's just say 3 or maybe 3.125. Now we get close to finding that perfect home, and we're kind of updating numbers and whatnot. And now we're at 3.625 or 3.75. And I get the same reaction, right? It's like, they're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking our rear view mirrors are really short.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we're still in the threes. I mean, that's kind of a blessing, I think. I mean, that is still ridiculously low.
So if rates continue their trend and continue to move higher, and let's say, where we are today, average, $400,000 buyer, rates are what you said, 3.75 or so. Let's say they move up a half a point. What does that do as far as their ability to purchase? How does that affect the monetary outcome for them?
Yeah.
At the end of the day?
Yeah, good question. So the doom and gloom media, as I refer to, I've had this love-hate, actually a hate-hate relationship with the doom and gloom media since 2009. You remember that fun housing market that we went through. So if we just left it up to them, their headline would be something like interest rates skyrocketing, homes no longer affordable, right? And they would just kind of leave it at that. And that could really scare the crap out of people, pardon my French there. So I think that's a great question that you ask, because it's important that we really kind of break that down and just kind of unpack what does this do to a monthly payment, right? So I did go ahead and run a scenario. First of all, in that general scenario that you're mentioning, 400,000 with 10% down, that's going to be about a $22 to maybe $23 a month impact to your monthly payment for every 1/8 of a point increase in rate, right? So from 3% to 3 1/4, that's 2/8. That's a 1/4 of a point. You're talking less than $50 a month difference. And I think it's critical that we put that into perspective, right? So instead of rates are skyrocketing, they've gone from 3 to 3.5. Oh my God, houses are more expensive now. I can't afford it. Maybe it's not as much. That's about $100 a month, right? And I'm not saying that that's chump change. I mean, that's groceries.
There's still impact, yeah.
Absolutely, there's still an impact there, but it's not as much as the media might have you believe that it is, right? So I did run a scenario, and I even went kind of one step further. So I think it's important that we also include home price appreciation, right? So we need to consider appreciation in our example, as well as inflation, i.e. higher interest rates. So I went back to August of this past year, and the average or the median home price here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area was $337,227, right? I could have rounded, but I thought I was just going to let's use real numbers, right? So in that scenario, a sales price of $227,000, I took 10% down. I used average for property taxes, homeowners insurance, and mortgage insurance, because you're going to have that. So I wanted this to be a real life example, right? So if you had great credit, you're putting 10% down, and your interest rate's at 2.75 or 2.875 back in August, that would yield a total monthly payment of $2,078 a month, right?
Yep.
So let's fast forward, and I'm basing this off of December's numbers, because obviously January's aren't out yet. Median home price here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, $354,900. And I'm using Freddie Mac's average interest rate of 3.56 in that scenario. So on $354,900, if you put 10% down and you had an interest rate of 3.56, your monthly payment would be $2,324 versus $2,078. So that's a difference of $246, right? And it's not all because of interest rate. And I think it's important that we take the focus off of rate, but it's also appreciation. So that's about an 11.8% increase in monthly payment. Number one, because of appreciation, and then also number two, because of higher rates. That's just
so the longer you wait, especially in today's market with low inventory, and I don't love that term, low inventory, because it's funny that every year, 21, we sold more homes than we did in 2020. And 2020 sold more homes than we did in 2019 as a market as a whole.
Yeah.
So if we're selling more homes, how is there low or no inventory? Because there has to be that inventory to supply to be able to sell.
True.
Right? So it may not be low inventory. It may just be very quick moving inventory. right?
Yeah.
But you are right with the inflation causing prices to go up. So price escalations causing payments to go up with interest rates.
Mm-hmm.
So those people that are on the fence and they've been on the fence for 6, 8, 10 months, they've seen their price go by them, or the house that they could afford go by them. So a lot of times we're trying to communicate that with them is, would you rather go act now and you take advantage or capitalize on that equity appreciation, or wait 12 months and now interest rates are higher, the home price has shot up 10%, and now you're losing on both ends.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Good point. I mean, just if you think about it, if interest rates just stayed level, it would still be more expensive just because of appreciation.
Yeah.
Right?
For instance, we had a client close December of 2020 for right around 290, brand new home. They sold it December of 2021, got relocated for job, sold it for 356.
Wow.
1 year.
Can you get a new home for 290 now?
No, you can't even touch a new home in 290 now. You can't find one. If anybody has any, please send them to me, because we have plenty of buyers, but we can't find.
Right. Wow.
So as far as going back to the rates, how is this the overall impact? We talked about low inventory, rates moving up. How is this impacting sellers? What are your thoughts on this, as far as, because they're going to be buying too?
Right.
And I think this is an inherent problem that we're seeing too, is they're holding on to that asset because they don't know where they're going to go. Is there anything that you do from a mortgage side that helps solve that problem?
Well, I think it's important to call that out, right? And you might be thinking of selling your home, and you might just have this mindset that rates are still at 3% or below 3%. I still get the phone calls from somebody that's in the market now and they're going to buy, and they're still thinking that rates are below 3%, right? So I think it's really important. I think it's critical that real estate professionals have that conversation with their sellers right now. Even somebody, maybe they've been getting the home prepped and upgrading this and that to get it ready to sell for the last even 2 months. I mean, interest rates have climbed 0.5 point in 2 months. I mean, it's taken quite a bit of a jump, but I think it's critical that they get their seller with their preferred lender and just kind of go over numbers. Okay, you can sell this, and that's great. You can, as you're hammering the sign in the yard, you'll probably get 25 offers, right? That's great. But then where are you going to go? Number one, are you going to find a home? And number two, what does that look like from a cost perspective? Now, what does your cash to close look like now with appreciation? And what does your monthly payment, look like because of interest rates? So I think it's critical that sellers have that same conversation with a mortgage professional, just like a buyer would, unless you're planning on renting. And last I checked, rents are, what are they at? Average rent is up 17.1% in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yeah, the rents have they've outpaced the actual home sales appreciation.
It's crazy.
Yeah. All the investors that are holding, they're foreseeing their tax base get raised, so they're going to try to recapture that when rents come due, right?
Yeah.
And so they've just been, we have a couple of lease clients that we're working with. It's very difficult to find anything in that 1,500 range per month.
Oh man, that's like a studio apartment now.
Yeah, that used to get you a 322, in this area. So definitely things have changed. We all have to adapt to it, but we do educate our sellers from that standpoint as well too. As always,
I know you're
sitting with the lender, right?
Yeah.
Prior to making this decision. And we can work a lot of things in the contract. Now the sellers still hold the power, so they can have things like lease backs and things like that until the market, may shift a little bit. And we see more and more inventory come on where buyers have a little bit more power again. But I don't see that happening like anytime real soon, because we're actually pushing into typically the hotter parts of the year. Only thing I see that could cause that, and you've kind of debunked it, is the mythical 4%. Once we get above that, the market's going to stall out.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, I think before we went live, I think that's really a mindset that is created by the media, right? So if we're now averaging let's just say 3.5, and let's say we jump to 4%. I think we could sniff 4%. It's just so volatile right now. You're talking 25, 50, 75 bucks a month, $100 a month. And again, I don't mean to be insensitive to that, because that's still money, right? But I don't think $100 a month would be enough of an impact to push me out of the market of buying a home anymore.
Yeah, if you're teetering on that $100 a month by not being able to live, if you spend an extra $100 a month, then you probably shouldn't be buying at that price point.
Yeah,
you probably should be down.
Very true.
Lower, where the impact isn't as great.
Yeah. But I think as far as sellers, I think that, and you would know better than me, but that conversation with sellers might start to change just a little bit, where I don't know, maybe agents introduce the fact that, you might not get 50 to 100 to 200,000 over list price, and to not hold out for that, because I think you're going to start seeing, you may see the buyer pools begin to shrink just a bit, really because of that mindset that the media is going to portray. Some people are just going to assume that they might not be able to afford to buy a home anymore, and they haven't even taken the first step, which is tragic. But I think you may start to see a few more appraisal issues with over list price offers and whatnot, and then that just leads to disgruntled sellers and people not happy, and it's a vicious cycle, right? But you would know better than me.
You had mentioned something in there that I wanted to pause on, because I think it's a very good point. The first step, the very first step, to me, it's always get your loan situation figured out.
Yeah.
Before going into homes, even actually before even looking at homes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The worst thing that happens in the industry, from my standpoint, is we find somebody the perfect home and they can't buy it.
Oh gosh.
And now everything they do from that point forward, they're constantly comparing it to that home they couldn't buy, and they can't find another, because now prices are going up, interest rates are going up, and that ability to buy has gone lesser and lesser. So, to you, it's the same thing. What's the difference between pre-qualified, pre-approved? What does it matter?
Yeah, good question. So pre-qualified is something that you can do on, I don't know, fakerate.com or whatever it is, right? So a pre-qualification letter is essentially kind of worthless. And I think your more experienced agents realize this. That means if I'm a buyer, I spoke with a lender on a phone, or maybe I just filled out an online application, and based on the income and asset data that I input, that I just put on the application, and my credit profile, I'm pre-qualified, right? Pre-approval, which is we try to elevate our clients' status to pre-approval on every single one of them. It just looks and feels better to a listing agent when you're presenting an offer if they're pre-approved, right? So a pre-approval means that a lender like myself has actually reviewed documents to support the income and the assets that you input on the application. Some people some clients are self-employed, but they don't necessarily think of themselves as self-employed. If you own more than 25% of a business, you're essentially treated as self-employed, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're a partner in a firm or something and you have a good deal of ownership, you're likely going to be treated as self-employed. So you might put on the application what your checks are, but at the end of the year, you may make $200,000 a year, but you may show Uncle Sam that you make $50,000 a year, right? So a lender is going to go off of that. But so if I never interviewed you, if I never asked you those questions on the get-go, and I just took your word for it based on the application that you completed online, I'd be setting you up for disaster. Once you go under contract, you finally find that perfect home, offer gets accepted. Then I start reviewing your documentation and determine, oops, yeah, you don't really qualify anymore. That's a difficult conversation to have.
Yeah, for sure. That's the worst conversation.
Yeah. But I mean, you're right. Getting the finances squared away up front. There's two questions that are critical for loan officers to ask up front to kind of set the whole experience up for success. And they're not included on the application. And those two questions revolve around their budget, their finances. And it's really their financial goals or their targets. One of them is, what is your monthly payment comfort zone, right? So we kind of get that. And then what is your cash to close? Like, what's that total dollar amount that you've kind of earmarked for your day of closing? Not just down payment, because I think you're really stopping short if a loan officer asks you, okay, what down payment are you comfortable with? Because as you know, there's more costs involved than just a down payment. So if you've set aside whatever $50,000 to buy this house up front, and a loan officer puts $50,000 as your down payment, well, you're probably still going to have $6,000, $7,000, $10,000, $12,000 more dollars in closing costs and title insurance, because sellers aren't paying that anymore. Property taxes, homeowners insurance. So there's a lot involved. So if I can get the answers to those two questions and just kind of work backwards into a mortgage that fits those numbers, and then take that mortgage and work backwards into a price point, then it just sets everyone up for success.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate that, because that is one thing that we always, when we're interviewing buyers to start with, I think it's important. One, we get to learn them, they get to learn us, how we work, whether it's you as a lender or me as an agent. And we get to find out some key things. And one of those things we often get is, oh, we got 50,000 set aside, and that's our very next question. Is that for down payment, closing costs, then the whole thing, or is that just your down payment? And the varied answers we get tells us all we need to know is we need to educate a little bit more. But now I don't want to take too much of your time today. We've been on here for about 20 minutes or so. So
I told you I had like 2 hours worth of slides.
I don't know if I can talk mortgages for 2 hours, but
I can. Well, I can, but it's boring.
Yeah. Thank you very much for coming on. Is there anything as far as contact, people can reach out to you if they have any questions, things like that?
Yeah, I mean, they can find me online. It's my name, coleholmes.com. Just make sure you put the L in Holmes, and that should probably get you all the contact information that you need.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Cole.
Absolutely.
Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. Take care.
Yep. Bye-bye.